Hi, I'm Nathan. I go by Peteparker, and every week I do comic book reviews because that's the rule around my house. If I want to keep buying them, I have to review them online. So this review is going to be for Fear Itself Deadpool #1. That probably right there had you blown away. Stepping back for a second, right? Maybe not blown away, that's probably extreme. Because not a lot of people were interested in this book from what I gather originally. And I can't say that I was either. There's 2 Deadpool books that came out this week. This one was the Fear Itself Deadpool, and then there was the regular Deadpool series where he's fighting the Hulk, I think. So I looked at them both, and what probably sold me right away was this first page here, where they're generally talking about how hammers are cool and how Deadpool should have his own hammer, and how he's basically dressed up as MC Hammer. For those of you too young to remember what MC Hammer looks like, I had a best friend in probably elementary school or middle school who had MC Hammer's poster on his wall, and it looked exactly like that, minus the Deadpool suit on top. So regardless, that was awesome on its own and probably sold me on the book, especially with the $2.99 price point. But then on the inside, in the first couple pages, you've got some wonderful Dazo, yes, D-A-Z-O art. Now, I've read a decent amount of Deadpool here and there. I enjoy the character often. That's kind of nice to have a little bit of humor mixed in with this extreme ability of an assassin. This book is really heavy in humor, so if you don't like humor books, which I typically don't, then you might not like this at all. It's written by Christopher Hastings, and the pencils, like I said, are by Dazo, and the name of this story is The Chosenist, which is hilarious. It's hilarious that they're like, I'm not the type of person that laughs out loud at these kind of books or anything like that, but I really found like all of the jokes, or at least the jokes at the beginning of this book, really funny. And it's really interesting too, because the beginning of the story I thought was really strong, and then at the end it kind of tapered out. So we'll talk about the story. How about that? So Deadpool had no idea the Fear Itself was going on in the rest of the world, and he just started going around selling home improvements to people to help people who are scared keep their homes more secure. And he specifically talks about how he made this one home for these customers, Juggernaut proof or whatever. And as soon as he says that, that's when Juggernaut with the the new Fear Itself hammer busts through the walls and ruins his whole chances. And then the guys that are working with him just happen to have a hammer with them, and as Deadpool learns about these hammers, he decides that he wants to have one too. So as their car mysteriously blows up and the hammer goes flying, Deadpool picks it up and thinks it's awesome and pretends like it's his own cool hammer or whatever. He even bedazzles it or whatever, and they talk about how it doesn't look like the first hammer earlier in the book, but just go with it. And that kind of breaking the fourth wall of, we realize this is an issue, but who cares, right? It's just a funny book, so keep going. Is really cool to see too, because you don't read it all that often. And so on top of this, at the same time, Deadpool's looking for a bad guy that he can beat up to make himself look better or feel better about this whole disastrous thing that he just tried. And he finds this guy named the Walrus. And the Walrus seems familiar to me, but at the same time, he doesn't seem very familiar, so I don't know if he existed before this, and it doesn't really matter. He's apparently a really stupid villain, and he has a walrus costume, and he's a little bit strong, a little bit impervious to damage, but he's really dumb. And so he gets a hold of this hammer, more or less, not Wolverine. Deadpool drops it from the air to try to create an explosion so that the walrus will think that it's mystical or whatever, and then the walrus takes it and starts to believe that it's mystical but isn't sure about it. So then Deadpool has to reassure him, as the specter of mass destruction over here, that it's a mystical hammer, which is nice because he's got his Deadpool costume on and then just a lousy mask on top of that. And then at the very, very end of the book, you find out that the people who had originally owned the hammer say that it really is mystical and really does have power. So it's like the ironic twist that this hammer that he happened upon actually does have power. I like this book because it's generally poking fun at the fear itself kind of stuff that's going on. Just almost like the theory of fear itself altogether. But there's people in the world that don't really know what's going on, they don't really care, and then to have these hammers with special abilities is so kind of cheesy a little bit that they're making fun of it a little bit. Now, like I said earlier, the story and the artwork in the beginning of this book is really awesome. You get some really great splash pages with that Juggernaut busting through, and I felt like the jokes were spot on and the art was spot on, and then by the end it seemed to get more looser and looser with that kind of stuff. The artwork didn't seem as strong and the jokes didn't seem as funny. Now maybe that's just from getting used to the humor as you're going through it, and it ended up not being as funny at the end as it was in the beginning. Maybe it was a novel idea at first and it's not so funny towards the end, which is why I'm also surprised that this is a 3-issue miniseries that you can buy into and follow for 3 issues. I would have liked to see this more as a 1-issue tie-in miniseries, because I don't know really if I'm going to enjoy this type of book for 3 whole issues while this other stuff is going on. I mean, the story's okay, but it's not great, and the beginning stuff was Deadpool's reaction to this whole fear itself. That was really good. Now you're getting into the Walrus having his own hammer, and how does Deadpool deal with that. It's kind of more complex than I really care about, which is, I guess it's not that complex, right? But anyway, at the end I felt like it was not as great as it started out to be, and the start is really what sold me on the book. I mean, that and the MC Hammer image, talking about how hammers are cool, and the jokes that are in that first page are basically worth my $3 that I paid for this book. So I'm going to say that it's a solid 3 out of 5. I probably would give it a 4 out of 5 if the art had kind of stayed really strong through the whole thing. It seems like more time was spent at the beginning than at the end. Maybe that's true, maybe it's not. And it also seemed like the jokes were even better at the beginning too, but maybe I got bored with the idea as it was going. So I would have given it a 4 if it had been basically the same from front to back. But somehow at the end I became disillusioned with this whole idea, and I liked it a lot more in the beginning. So there you go, 3 out of 5, Fear Itself, Deadpool #1. We will see if I will be buying the other 2. I'm not all that interested in the Walrus, but maybe they'll have really awesome beginnings also, and they'll also be only $2.99, and that'll get me. So, check out my other reviews on YouTube as Spidey207 without the E, and as Peteparker on the Marvel and DC database, iFanboy, and Comic Vine. Any of those. They'll all have my same reviews, and you'll get all of them mostly from YouTube anyway, so it's probably easiest just to follow on YouTube. But it's up to you. Wherever you like to hang out, wherever you like to watch reviews or listen to reviews, they'll be at all those places. So thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.